All right, welcome to the Smoke and Rope podcast. This is episode 61. I am your guest host today, Josh Hovey from Martin Waymeyer. Joining us today, we have Jevin Weyenberg from Lake Effect. Jevin, how you doing today?
Very good, Josh. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thank you. And my fellow co-host today, we have Tom Beller from Real Leaf Solutions. Tom, what's up?
Gentlemen, it's a beautiful day. Just working through some technical difficulties. Doesn't quite feel like a Friday, but here we are. Excited to jump in here with Jevin.
It's never a podcast without a few technical difficulties. So our fearless co-host Ryan Basor is out today, and I'm happy to be filling in. I first met Jevin way back when helping to get the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association started. He was one of the first board members to join the association and really has been instrumental in getting to the point where it is today. Jevin, you are the co-owner of Lake Effect. You're also, a medical marijuana patient from in the past. Why don't you describe your kind of journey into the industry and cannabis in general, and give our listeners just a little background about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. I'll basically start in 2013 start from the beginning of the story, I should say. I was picking my daughter up out of her car seat when she was 3 years old and getting ready to walk into the grocery store. And her foot just kind of swung down when I was picking her up out of the car seat, and it caught me right in the left hoo-ha. And the pain in that area didn't go away for a while, and it wasn't that hard of a hit. So I happened to be just sitting down one day, and I'm like, why is this pain not going away in my left hoo-ha? And I said I should probably go get this thing checked out. So I went and got it checked out, and about a day later, I found out there was a tumor in there and that I had testicular cancer, and things started happening fast after that. Surgery came a few days after that, and the specimen got sent off to the Mayo Clinic to be tested for what type of cancer it was, and how much a CT scan followed up to see how much it spread and things like that. But being 33 years old and new father and all that, it was definitely quite the eye opener, but and unexpected. But I had served in the Marines for 8 years, and that included 2 tours of duty over in Iraq. So I learned to roll with the punches at an early age, and I knew that I was healthy at the time. I was actually training for the first Tough Mudder that was going to be at Michigan International Speedway later that summer. So I was running 5 and 6 miles a day, even with that going on and not having any symptoms. But luckily, my daughter kicked me at the right time and got me in, and they found it early. And I ended up having to do about 6 months of chemo, no radiation or anything. But after that, they said I had a good prognosis, and knock on wood, it's been a good prognosis so far. But cannabis really helped me get through the 6 months of chemotherapy. That about halfway through that, that stuff is very cumulative over time, and nausea was hitting me hard. Appetite loss was hitting me hard. I mean, my wife was telling me, you got to eat, and your mind just really plays a lot of tricks on you when you're going through chemotherapy. When you're sitting there for hours a day, letting poison come in your body, it really starts to play tricks on you. And when you go to eat, your mind just thinks, well, you're putting more poison in me. You don't want to eat amongst all the other drugs that you have. But cannabis really stimulated my appetite almost instantaneously through all of that. Took the nausea away. That was really debilitating. Took a lot of the chronic pain issues that I had away instantaneously, and took a lot of the sleeplessness issues I had away. And that was just me getting from the unregulated market, so to speak. I didn't know a caregiver at the time. Nobody at the cancer center saying, hey, go find a caregiver. I had to do my own research and education and find out that, hey, this number one, once I realized how good the medicine was, I couldn't believe how much it was kept really from the people that needed it most. I'm doing chemo in a cancer center with hundreds of people in it, and I'm probably one of the few that's using cannabis as a medicine. I know I was.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: were there certain products that was it flour, or was it a concentrate, or what were the products that you were able to find on the unregulated market at that time?
It was just flour, and my uncle had colon cancer that he was getting over, and he was going to Ann Arbor for that, and he happened to have some cookies and some brownies that were probably old and they were stale, but they were medicated, and that was really the only edibles I had during the time I was doing chemo. But I kept educating myself through that and understanding what the market was like. But when I was done with my treatment and stuff. Then I started going to stores in Lansing and Ann Arbor and educating myself on what was going on there and looking at more, I would say, less unregulated product that I was getting in Ziploc bags and more regulated products that were grown by people that were growing better than the people I'm sure I was getting stuff from and things like that. So, but by that point, I was getting healthy. I knew I had to find a way to get involved in the industry because of how good the medical aspect of the plant was. And so
And at what point did you say I have to do this? Like this is my life's work is now going to be cannabis.
Yeah, that was definitely a point in which I was doing chemotherapy, and I knew when I got done with chemotherapy, I was going to smoke a bowl and I was going to feel great, and everyone around me in that room wasn't going to have that feeling. They were going to go home and they were going to regurgitate whatever they ate. Probably they were going to feel like crap. They were going to have all of the bad symptoms that you don't want with chemotherapy is what they were going to be going through, and the medicine that the doctors were giving me, prescription medicine, wasn't doing anything to take away any of those symptoms, even though I was taking it. So that's really what lit the fire inside me that it really hasn't gone out since, but it's phenomenal that we have this plant on Earth, and it's too bad it was made illegal 80 years ago because we'd be so much further along right now. But I'm super excited about what the future has to hold. So,
No doubt, no doubt.
At what point did that did you decide to start or become a part of the Lake Effect group? Then was that kind of like a motivating factor for you?
Yeah, so when I started getting healthy and looking for ways to become involved in the industry, I just was basically emailing or calling anybody that I saw pop up on a media article regarding cannabis, and so that led to a few different people. One of them was Justin Palmatier, whose mom had started a testing lab in Kalamazoo, really state of the art, way ahead of their time, and was doing some phenomenal work there. And it was just kind of, we had a building owner that was willing to give us a lease that kind of knew what we wanted to do. Partnering up with Justin and Steve locally, they were the caregivers that brought a lot of great medicine to the table, and we just said, hey, we're going to push this issue by pushing it commercially. You can only have so much effect pushing the issue in a non-commercial way. You really push the issue and make people look at you when you open up a commercial establishment, and that obviously didn't go well for a lot of people. We were lucky enough to when we did open up a commercial establishment, we worked with the local authorities as much as we possibly could, stayed transparent as much as we possibly could, and luckily we had a mayor and a city council that was on our side as well, and they allowed us to essentially stay open as long as the state was allowing us to stay open, and go towards licensing. So we ran that store as best we possibly could. We had great team members and teammates there the whole time, people that were real advocates that really cared about everything, every patient that walked through that door. We gave every tour to every city council that you could possibly imagine, and any other official that wanted to see what we did, how we brought caregiver product in, how it was being tested, and just tried to educate people along the way as much as possible. And there was a lot of great people that were interested in having an open mind about it and seeing the good things it was doing, and certainly hundreds of people at city council meetings advocating for the plant and advocating for us to be able to stay open helped immensely as well. But pushing that issue forward, going into licensing, dealing with the licensing board, being on the advisory panel, and trying to, I remember my first advisory panel meeting. I'll never forget it. And I talked to David Harns and Andrew Brisbois about this every once in a while because they were in the room kind of wide-eyed. But we got in that room, and it was like October 29th or 28th, and the whole industry was basically facing shutdown on October 30th, pending a ruling by, I think, Judge Borello or something like that. That was going to be an extension of an extension of an extension of. Nobody could even keep track of how many extensions were being given to businesses that were operating in gray areas and stuff like that. But we went in there. There was probably 16 people or so on that advisory panel board, and most of them were lawyers, prosecutors, former police officers. Shelley Egerton started off as the chair of that board, who was the head of Lara at the time, and I just went in there and I had to fight. You feel like being the only patient advocate in there on that board. You're backed into a corner, and they want to shut the industry down. It's unregulated. There's dangerous things going on. Blah 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 blah. None of them knew anything about cannabis other than the negative stigmas that they've seen over the years for the most part. And I tried to get chairman of that board. I thought better of it as we kept going through the voting process. But I volunteered for all of the subcommittees that came from that board and really helped, I think, put together a good law in coordination with the state that we ended up rolling out. Is it perfect? Heck no. But I think we got a good chance of getting it continuously better. That's what's great about the MICIA and the advocacy work they do in that regard. But it's a much better state law than most states that can say that they have. There's no doubt about that. And Andrew really took an open mind and understood. He tried to do, I think, the best he could do to keep small businesses going, state, locally owned small businesses going. It's not easy. Certainly the federal hurdles are really hard on people, as you guys know. Not being and having access to capital through traditional banking, it kills a lot of people. The slow, expensive licensing process. A lot of people don't realize that if you're trying to be an owner in this business or even a property owner, it takes so long to get licensed. Somebody's got to pay for that property to sit there and lose money while you're going through all that licensing process. And it's all cash. There's no, hey, I'm going to put together a great business plan and go in front of this bank and I'm going to show you it's been done all over the country. We're going to make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars and look at, we got the staff ready, we got the building, and they're just going to laugh you right outside the bank. So you got to find cash from somewhere, or these private equity firms or something like that that'll come in, but that costs you so much usually. And then even if you do get something like that, it only just slowly it doesn't mean you're at the finish line. You still got to get to the finish line and then make sure that a lot of that money's repaid back very quickly. So
right, you don't want to give away the
barriers to entry are. I was gonna say the barriers to entry are extremely high still. You're talking about back in the day with the board and everything. I mean, that was extremely difficult and stressful. But even now, it's like all these things are great points. It's extremely expensive. The barrier to entry, even though Michigan has one of the more progressive cannabis programs as far as a regulatory body is concerned, it is not an inexpensive venture by any means. And the traditional lines of credit and things that people would typically have access to are not there. They're still not there, and which will lead people to, in a pinch, possibly leverage everything that they've worked hard for and basically give it to somebody else in order to stay afloat. And these are all things that need to be, especially if we're trying to be inclusive as an industry and bring caregivers in and get the products that we need on the market and the regular, in order to normalize things. Something needs to be done. But it also is it's expensive to run a cannabis company. I mean, aside from the regulatory fees and all of the things that are atypical, just your standard operating costs and everything are, you may not be exactly what people put down on their pro formas per se,
Right. Well, I run a public relations and communications company, and like cash flow is something you're always looking at as a business owner. You're always looking at your projections, but you guys must be incredibly conservative with the way that you run, much more so than a traditional business, right? Because like you guys say, like you can't just go to the bank and get a line of credit necessarily. So, talk about those strategies a little bit.
Yeah, well, don't go negative. That's when you're on a cash business. Don't go negative. That's what it's. You're always looking at that bank account, and you got to figure that against payroll, and it's just you have to take if you can take steps forward. That's all you're looking to do, no matter how big the step. Just every day, a small step forward, and you'll keep slowly gaining market share, slowly building your company. To the point where I'm sure the three of us would agree, you need a vertically integrated company to survive long term in the state of Michigan. And if you're not working in that direction, I think for the most part you're on borrowed time. So our goal from day one, when we even first opened Lake Effect 6 years ago, was to become a vertically integrated company in this industry. We had to work our way backwards. So we had the provisioning centers, and then we opened a processor when we could still take in caregiver product through our processor. And then from there, have it tested and ship it to our stores. And now subsequently that rule is gone. So we're making our own gummies in there, and we fill some cartridges in there, but we're also building out the grow, which is the most expensive part of it. And we have the property, we've had the property, but it's a lot of money to build it out. It's a lot of extra cash, and it's pretty much, that's where all of our, any money we might make, if it doesn't go to taxes, it goes to building out our grow. So, but we're getting there. We're slowly building it out. We got some electrical work being done. We got some HVAC that's coming in line. So it's just, you try to write one check at a time, and you understand your budget. But we've been
slow and steady.
Now. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Definitely being recreational has help crank up the business. So it's just amazing, the demand that's out there.
Well, let's talk about the provisioning center a bit. How has your experience as a patient? How has that influenced your approach to your provisioning center?
Well, it's just what do you want to see? I was the cancer patient that was looking for a Lake Effect. Lake Effect would have been a godsend for me, and it was a godsend for a lot of people that had cancer after we got opened. But you walk in, we started out, it's dignified access to medicine. That was my mantra in front of the city councils a lot of time. Dignified access to medicine. 90% of the people out there don't know where to find a caregiver. I love the caregiver network. It's great. It's phenomenal. People did a great job in that world and still do. But at the end of the day, the people that are going and having these serious ailments, there's no caregivers R Us where they can go find one. So that was really, you had to put your dignity, as you really were treated like a second-class citizen, as you guys know, needing cannabis medicine. And that was just something I wasn't going to stand for. And when you go preach a little common sense and to the people around Kalamazoo and Portage, they understand, I think, what cannabis means, and there's a lot of great advocates here that helped educate them, and like I said, they took an open mind. So I think you can really see a great blossoming industry around this area. I know Kalamazoo's industrial park is getting buildings built in it, millions of dollars spent. Harbor Farms built a phenomenal grow out here and processor. 7 Point Supply is out here building in an industrial park that hadn't had one building built in it in Kalamazoo in 15 years and was just sitting empty. And now you have hundreds of jobs in the industrial parks here, good paying jobs, and great companies setting up shop that are going to be around for a long time. So it's great to see.
Yeah, it's amazing watching an entirely new industry just come into fruition, and all of the benefits that we argued for. As me working on the Prop 1 campaign on like leading the communications of it, I always wanted to be cautious of not overselling the benefits of the industry, but we always talked about the jobs and the tax revenue, the access to safe products. All of that's happening, and it's really is coming to fruition exactly as everyone said it would, and so it's really just an amazing thing to see. Going back to the caregivers though. Does your experience in terms of working with caregivers as a patient influence who you source products from in your provisioning center?
Definitely, yep. Anybody who is in the unregulated market, who is now in the regulated licensed market, we want to work with. We have it's a lot like yeah, and we'd be happy to work with you, Tom. I'm not sure if we are or not right now, but send some menus our way, bud. But it's a lot. It reminds me a lot of being in the Marines, honestly. And when you get back together with some of the guys on Veterans Day and things like that you served with, there's things that you guys can talk about and joke about and laugh about and see eye to eye on that you just don't see eye to eye and with anyone else because of the experiences you had. And a lot of that's the caregiver market. The not being able to trust people around them, constantly having to worry about their grows being broken into and having plants stolen, especially when they're in flower. I mean, if you made it through that war zone and now you're in the licensed market trying to build a company and trying to put great medicine out there, kudos to you, and we'd love to work with you because your character, your heart stand out, your hard work stands out, and those are some of the great companies that are out there. I mean, you guys know some of them. Some of you guys are some of them. And going back to what you said a little bit ago, Josh, you guys did a phenomenal job. The foresight you had to write the law that you guys wrote and got passed by the people of the state of Michigan, threading the needle between our very very non-cannabis friendly Republican legislature could have done, Supreme Court or any court along the way could have done, scuttling that thing or continuing to delay it, and you guys threaded a great needle and then marketed it well. And there was enough, I think, due to basically the 2008 medical law passing, it leveled up the education level around the state of Michigan enough to get that rec law passed. So kudos to you guys. There's tens of thousands of people that don't have a cannabis charge on their record over the last 3 years because of that law passing.
Absolutely. And, it's, it's just been amazing to watch. And going back again to, the caregivers and what folks had to go through in terms of, always watching behind their back. That's the real reason why this industry is so much built on relationships and trust, right? I mean, it's unlike any other industry I've ever experienced where, you work with people that you trust, and that those folks have been through, similar experiences. And so when you're dealing with, a corporate investor owned company who's like in it because they saw a business opportunity, it's entirely different from dealing with someone who was a caregiver and who was, in the trenches and fighting the fight and risking everything to serve patients. So kudos to you for really backing up the caregiver side of the industry and supporting that. And I also want to thank you for your service. It's amazing what veterans have been through, and that struggle to access cannabis as medicine. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really sad. Unfortunately, it's kind of been one of the unfortunate fallouts of the drug war, and there's many of them out there. But veterans being basically scorned. There's veterans I know that have lost access to other medications because of being upfront with their doctor and being honest, saying they were using cannabis. There's veterans that can't get home loans and things like that through the Veterans Administration because of cannabis use. That's ending now, I hope, but that's the way it's been for a long, long time. So there's tons of discrimination against veterans when it comes to cannabis by our federal government. And it really hasn't ended very much, other than them saying, well, we won't cancel your benefits if you may have PTSD benefits or something like that, or some injury during your service. We won't cancel your benefits if you're using cannabis now, but we're not going to support or advocate for it, even though there's hundreds of veterans every day, maybe not hundreds every day, but there's veterans every day committing suicide. There's veterans I know personally I serve with overseas, more than one, unfortunately, that have committed suicide. The VA hospitals are basically opioid factories. There's no secret. They'll tell you that. You go in there with any sort of ailment, they're going to try to send you out with an opioid. And there's no education around it. There's here, take this, and don't kill yourself, basically. So there's a long ways to go in veteran treatment and veteran education around cannabis. I hope, and one day there will be greenhouses at VA hospitals where cannabis is grown, and cannabis will be freely administered and prescribed through the VA hospitals. When our racist, discriminatory federal government gets off their ass and changes the laws, essentially. It pisses me off beyond no other. I will debate and argue with every doctor and psychologist I see at the VA when I go in there. I have veterans brochures and things that I've made myself that give some basic education on cannabis use for symptoms, and I leave them in the VA waiting rooms when I go in there. I leave them on the tables and stuff like that. But we got a long ways to go, and it really, the federal government is an excuse that a lot of our institutions like to use for not being able to do things right, unfortunately, and we're still in that spot when it comes to veterans and cannabis use.
It's interesting because a lot of seems to be a lot of touting of like they love to bring the veterans out and parade them when they want to make an announcement to something like, oh, we're going to give you this, or we're kind of like you're saying, like PTSD. Okay, well, they have recognized it as something that could potentially help, and it's just like a microcosm of the general public, and just like you're saying, like the racist and just the inherent attitude towards cannabis users and the cannabis as a medicine. When it suits them, they want to bring out the veteran. Hey, we're doing something, but in reality, what you're telling us is that it's all lip service for the most part because people still can't access it. I do believe that people should have a daily regimen of cannabinoids that will help them. And especially people that have given everything for the country, and then to have the government turn their back on them on a simple plant medicine that can help change their lives it's inexcusable. I didn't really have a question for you, but it's just it just seems like it's only when it benefits people to start saying, oh, okay, well, we're gonna get behind of the veterans now. It's like you should always be behind them, and you need to listen to people. And they say, I need this. It works. It's a plant. What's the problem? Why can't we get away from that? Just because at the federal level that we have archaic laws against a plant, it's inexcusable and something that needs to change.
Yep. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head for sure, in my opinion. But there's there's thousands of doctors in the VA medical system. There's none advocating for cannabis use. Why not? Why aren't they? They know it can make a difference. Well,
they're just worried about their jobs, maybe.
Yeah, are they? Why? Why? You have an endocannabinoid system. What are you doing with your endocannabinoid system? What are you learning about it? What are you going to tell? What role does it have to play? Let's go here, people. It's 2021. Come on. Mm-hmm. But I think the same thing about, and again, nothing against law enforcement. And I feel even a little out of place talking about it because I was never a police officer. But in that regard, I think of 80 years of cannabis possession arrests or the smell of cannabis being used for probable cause. And none of those law enforcement officers, all of them took that power gladly and used it gleefully in ways that and a lot of them shouldn't have used it. None of them were advocating for that law to change. Why? They saw what it was doing to inner cities. Why didn't they advocate for that to change? They saw what it was doing to even outside of inner cities, everywhere. But I think there's just a whole mindset that's got to change, and the fact that the federal government doesn't allow any education on it really is a big part of it too, because they know if they
way behind.
Well, I do have to mention the one of the lesser reported aspects of Michigan's adult use cannabis law is that it does dedicate a percentage of tax revenue to researching how cannabis can help veterans with PTSD. And that's something that doesn't get enough attention, and those research funds are just becoming available. I believe that research is supposed to start next year. So hopefully we're going to see some good results of that. And I believe the FDA approval on that research is just in the process of happening. So
also Michigan is going to be, they're discussing the new license type, which is specifically for research.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be huge. And I really appreciate how Michigan's law is written to have that flexibility built in where we don't have to go back and amend it every little time that we want to make a change for a new license type or things like that. So I appreciate the drafters. Shout out to Matt Abel, Jamie Lowell, the folks who are on the drafting committee of adult use law, because they had the foresight to think about those things and make sure that it had some flexibility built in. But I do also have to shout out, I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, but Ryan from Redemption isn't here today, but Redemption is actually going to be at Lake Effect this afternoon. Jevin, you want to give a shout out to that real quick?
Yeah, I love having Redemption there. We're having a vendor day with them. Come on down to Lake Effect. I think it's from 3 to 7. There's going to be some great deals on Redemption products. 25% of the proceeds from any Redemption product will go to the Redemption Foundation. which should end up being a substantial amount of money. So we're super excited about that. Come on down. It's a beautiful day.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, the foundation's doing some great work working on freeing cannabis prisoners remaining in the state, expunging records, giving people new opportunities. So great organization. Thank you for supporting the cause.
Definitely. Thanks for doing what you guys do. You guys are heroes out there.
All right, and we're about at time. Time for one last question though, or a final statement. Tom, you want to shoot it off?
I really enjoyed hearing your story today, Jevin. I learned a lot about you. We've only met a few times, but just appreciate everything you do. Lake Effect was always my go-to store when I was in the Kalamazoo area before I even knew you guys. Very knowledgeable staff always, and I'm just glad. I was glad to hear your names. Get through the board and everything. When you guys finally got your approval. It was an exciting day for us too because it was. I know the process, I know the pain that you went through, but on top of it, all the other things that you've had to that you've endured throughout your life. It's inspiring to hear, and you're still smiling, and that's a beautiful thing. And we could probably thank cannabis.
Definitely. Yep. Thanks, Tom. And I plan on being in this industry the rest of my life. So let's do this.
Keep an eye out for him.
Will
Love
do.
it. All right, Jevin, any final thoughts you want to impart to the audience?
Oh man, just if you're out there looking to get in the cannabis industry, get in the cannabis industry. Whether you're a worker, a owner, any ancillary product and service, it's a great industry to be involved in, and it's going nowhere but up. We still have a long way to go. There's no area in Michigan that's saturated. There's no business category that's saturated. Get involved, educate yourself, and make the opportunity happen. But thanks a lot for your guys' time, and definitely would be happy to come on with you guys anytime. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for your
Thanks
time
a lot,
today.
man.
Really appreciate it, and you're always welcome back. So thanks very much, and you guys have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take it easy.